Okay, thanks for joining, everybody. Welcome to KETIV Virtual Academy. Today we have Jose Paredes-Clara joining us. He's going to be talking about managing change orders in Fusion Manage. We're so excited that you guys are all here, and we hope you're enjoying the learning experience that is KVA. After the session, you'll receive a link to a survey will pop up in your browser. Let us know what you thought of the session and what other topics you would like to see covered. I wanted to drop the link to the schedule. You can check out upcoming topics. Next week, we're going to have a session on bill of materials in Vault. And the week after that is going to be the final session of our 2D to 3D. And early next week, either Monday or Tuesday, you'll get your newsletter that will let you know the upcoming topics for the month of October. Can't believe September is already over. Somebody wake up that guy. When September ends. Okay, I'll let Jose take it away, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Christina. Yeah, like Christina said, we're going to be talking about managing change orders in Fusion Manage. Last session we did was change requests. So inside of Fusion Manage, they all kind of interconnect. So all these workspaces kind of work together to mimic your process, match your process, kind of elevate your process depending on how you want it to work. So this week we're gonna jump out of change requests, completing those, making sure that the changes that were requested or suggested are valid. And now we're gonna go ahead through the process of actually making those changes, whether it be those changes are creating a new product, changing an existing product, you're able to manage that in Fusion Manage. But we're gonna jump in here. Today's agenda is gonna be items and BOMs. So looking at that workspace in Fusion Manage, the different details that you can have, how you can customize those. We touched on that in change requests. You can make it fit your needs, make it fit the information that you require in your process. We're going to also look at creating BOMs, so children-parent relationships and how those work inside of Fusion Manage. And then jump into change orders, right? So there's a couple of aspects of change orders, such as life cycles, which I'll jump into in a little bit here, goes over the process that you're going through with that change order, whether it be initial release or design process. Approval boards, we touched on that during change requests, and how you can pick and choose who's going to be part of this process. Then you have, again, revision bumping and, again, scripting. Scripting is a very big part of Fusion Manage overall, because it gets to, you get to decide what happens at certain steps with certain approvals. For those of you that have not seen the change request KVA that we did, it's on our YouTube page if you wanted to go take a look at that after this session. But that also means you haven't met me before. You just saw me on camera. I look a lot better in this picture. But my name is Jose Paredes-Clara. I'm on the data management team here at KETIV. I've been with KETIV 8 years now. Started off on support and kind of gravitated towards data management, Vault, Fusion, things like that. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. So if anybody's following baseball, you know that I'm going through it right now. There's the, Yankee Law Street kind of on the way here, typical to everyone. But yeah, let's go ahead and kind of get into things here. Usually, if you've seen my presentations before, you know that I don't like to use PowerPoints a lot. I kind of jump into it. So if you have access to Fusion Manage or not, I have a demo tenant that we can use. So again, just right off the bat, if you haven't seen Fusion Manage before, it gives you a lot of information pretty much up front. This is the dashboard. This is the front page that you come into every morning when you log in. So it'll give you a list of your outstanding work. So you'll see that just a bunch of change orders that you see here that I've created over the past year or years. You'll see some from 2014. I'm very behind on a lot of my things. And then these charts up here are actually customizable. So if that's something that you guys want to jump into, again, this is information that is based off of the records that you have and the status of them as you move forward. But we're going to start off in our items and BOMs. So for this specific demo, I created some items and BOMs. So I'm going to go ahead and search for them here. You'll see that I have an item release item inside of my tenant, and you'll see here that it actually returns the results. Pretty much it found item amongst a lot of my items. But the one that I need here is this release during KVA example created in my items and BOMs workspace. So that's one way to get there. Another way to get to your items and BOMs environment here is by hitting this hamburger menu, and that is the technical term. That is how I learned it. Expanding the menu for workspaces, product development, and you'll see that your items and BOMs are here. So if you kind of wanted to navigate through your items and BOMs or get to a specific one, there's many ways you can get to those records. But what I did want to touch in here again is item details. So this details tab is very customizable. So you'll see here that there are a lot of different fields that get added. Again, this is all to add the necessary information or the relevant information to your environment. So when I come in here and edit, I can go ahead and either type certain information. So in here, you'll see that there is a free text box, or in some cases, you can have drop-down menus. So in this, for classification, for the classification section, depending on the classification that you pick. So if I come in here and click on this window, it'll open up a area of classifications. Whether you have mechanical components, electrical components, all of these different types of components have different relevant pieces of information, right? So for connectors, if I click connector header, it won't have the same information that you need for fasteners, right? You might need thread pitch, you might need width, you might need that kind of information for your fasteners, which you won't necessarily need for your connector headers. So as you click and pick one of these, so if I select connector header, this classification will change from IO bracket to connector header, and you'll see that the information relevant here changes. So not only does it change, it tells you which ones of these values are necessary to fill out. It does have some default values that it fills out for you, but it allows you to change those as you go. So this is, again, one of the things I like to showcase with Fusion Manage is how customizable and how moldable, I guess, it is to your process. So once we have our let's say our parent item ready for review, we can go ahead and start building the bill of materials. There's a couple of ways to do this, right? So there's the bill of materials tab. You'll see here that I already have a KVA child generated for this. The other way, the two ways that we can add to this bill of materials is, both come from this add button. You can either search the existing list of items that you have the option, so if I say 367 dash 00085, it'll come up with the item that already exists. I can select it and add it to my bill of materials. Or if the item does not exist yet, I can go ahead and create it from scratch, right? So if this is a brand new design, first time somebody's making this, I can go ahead and create a new item. If I click on here, I can go ahead and, again, pick the classification of item that I want. So I'm going to come in here and select fasteners, just as an example that we were talking about earlier. I'm going to add this. And one thing to keep in mind here is this toggle switch up here, right now it's showing only the necessary fields, right? So anything that needs to be filled out for your item to be created. If I toggle this on, though, it gives you the option to fill out the rest of the fields that we saw in our first page. So all the information, again, anything with that red asterisk just means it's necessary inside of the item. If I try to save this item without ever filling that out, or if it's empty, it'll let me know, hey, this needs to be filled out. So just something to keep in mind here. If if you're wondering where the rest of that information can be filled out, or if it needs to be filled out before you create it, you can go ahead and toggle this, and it'll give you the option here. So let me just give this a number of KVA child 2. And just give this a description of that. So I'm going to go ahead and save and close this. And what's nice is as soon as it creates it, it becomes available on the list that I was looking at earlier. So if I need to add this to my bill of materials, I just go ahead and select it, save my bill of materials, and now you'll see that it becomes part of this release process here. And as we're going through, I know, if I end up going too fast, or if you guys have any questions on the process or what I've done, feel free again to jump in and send a question in the Q&A board. So we have the item I'm going to release during my KVA. I have the 2 children that are now part of it. And I can go ahead and edit this, change the quantities that I need, change the units, and just make sure that it's as ready as it can be for the release process, right? Once it's in the release process, I can go ahead and do a couple of things. I can go ahead and create a change order from my main item, so from this item release example, or I can create an empty change order in the change order workspace. So what I'm going to do here, again, 2 ways to get there is hamburger menu, workspaces, change management, and then change orders would be one way to get there. So if I come in here, I have my full list of change orders created previously. I can go ahead and create a brand new change order, and again, fill out the necessary information about it. The second way we can do this is from that item we were on. If you hit these 3 little dots here, there is it won't let me here. I would have to do it from here. So if you click on it, you'll see the option here. It's grayed out. Quick create and change orders is the option I was looking for. The reason it's grayed out right now is because this item is already part of a change order. So you'll see here this little stamp, green stamp here, just lets us know, hey, it's part of a change order. Therefore, I can't add it to another one. So unlike KVA Child 2, which I just created, so it's not part of that change order yet. If I go to KVA Child 2, I can go ahead and create that change order from here. So if I click on this similar window that we saw earlier for items and BOMs, there's only 2 required fields. Again, we have the title, which is just the name of the change order, what we're doing, what we're releasing, and then the team, right? So who's going to be approving this? In my environment, it's only me. I have 2 options, CCB, which is just a longer review process, more checks, more approvals, or a fast track if I just wanted to get it out the door. It still requires certain people based on how you set up those approval lists. Again, that's something we covered in change requests on my last session. So that's something you kind of need a refresher on or want to learn more about. You can take a look at that session. But you have those 2 required ones. And again, if you wanted to see the rest of the fields, you can go ahead and toggle this and it'll give you more options. But we're not going to go ahead and create a brand new change order for this. Again, we already have one. We have this KVA release change order. If you look in here, you'll see that it has my item release example, which is the parent, and it has our KVA child, which is the child underneath that item. What's nice is if I need to add that new item that I just created, or excuse me, if there's like 30 new items that I created and they're all children of this example, I can select my parent, click these 3 little dots, and there's an option to add related items. So if I click on that, you can pick and choose how you want the related items to show up or which ones you want to show up. In this case, let's say I just want the direct children, which is fine. If I only want, that KVA child 2, it's smart enough to know that, KVA child is a child, of that item, but it's already added, so it only gives you the ones that are missing. So if I select that and hit add, it goes ahead and adds that child to my change order now. And you're able to release all of them at the same time, right? You don't have to go one by one, however many levels deep, adding every necessary item to make sure that everything gets released. If I go in here and refresh now, because this item is now part of that change order, you'll see it has that stamp icon. If I go into the three little dots, my option to create a change order is now grayed out. So we have our items created. Again, all the information you want on them can be modified, can be molded to fit your needs. We have our change order created as well. I chose a mechanical CCB, which means I have two approval stages, right? And again, this change order process can be molded to meet your requirements. If your change order process has more than two approvals, so you'll see this is the change order process that we're currently going through. A CCB review just means that it goes through the CCB review stage and then an implementation approval stage before it's finally approved, as opposed to a fast track, which instead of going through this whole process, goes through a much quicker one, which is through a fast track, has a fast track approval, and then goes into approved. What's nice about all three of these stages is through scripts, through kind of requirements in the workflow, you can dictate whether it is single approval, so first come, first serve. The first person that sees it pushes it forward, boom, it moves forward. Or if it's unanimous, so it requires everyone to either say approve if you have multiple approvers, and then the final approver pushes it into the next stage. So you can pick and choose again to match your workflow as you move forward. But we picked our workflow, we picked the people that are going to participate in this change order. The last thing to do is kind of what's going to happen to these items once the change order is approved, right? Once this process finishes, what happens next? So to do that, we do that here in the affected items tab for our change order, and we do that under the lifecycle portion here. So you'll see here, if I go ahead and edit this, I can change what happens to each one of these items. I can do it one by one, or I can assign it to, I can assign it in bulk for all of the ones that have been released or haven't been released. I can pick and choose what lifecycle it goes through. You'll see here that I have a couple options for items that haven't been released, and I have a couple options here for items that have been released. But the bulk lifecycle change kind of helps, again, not having to do everything one by one. You can do them all in bulk and then change any of the outliers. But that lifecycle, if you're not familiar with Fusion Manage, it is kind of confusing. So we're going to jump into it here. So within the Fusion Manage environment, this is your lifecycle editor, right? So kind of what happens throughout the process, throughout any workflow related workspaces. So you'll see here that any items that were in an unreleased state, so they've never been to production ever, they have two options. We saw initial design revision and bypass design and release. So depending on which one you need, you would pick one option, right? So bypass design and release automatically pushes any of the items into a production state, kind of giving them a revision and locking them up, as opposed to initial design revision pushes it into a in-design state. I would say the difference here is if your workflow or your company, your environment requires approvals for any design changes after certain points, right? So if you have multiple stage gates, you make design changes, they're approved. if there's any changes, it has to go through another change order. Pretty much individual change orders for each time a design change has to happen. Then you would go through initial design revision, kind of go through this loop as many times as you need, as many change orders as you need before eventually releasing to production. But if all of the design changes, all of the reviews, everything kind of going back and forth just requires one change order, like let's say you created a change order for initial release, then you can make it so that at the very end of this one change order, it goes straight into production as opposed to going through the cycles over and over. So that's for unreleased items, which we have in our change order here. We have these three down here are unreleased. I just created them. They need to go through this process. So if I say bypass design and release, you can set the effectivity. So when this kind of change goes into effect, you can do this, a lot of you, if you're working with stock of certain parts or certain designs, you can pick and choose, hey, they have to either be used by this date where this new design takes effect, or, as soon as this one gets released and approved, we're doing away with the older one and we're using this one moving forward. So you have the power to pick and choose when that effectivity goes into effect, right? So again, that's for these three unreleased items. If we look at this top one here, it's been released already, so it's already at revision A. Once I hit save here, you'll see that unreleased KVA child will also go to A. These are all currently at blank. But for this single slot fin here, we can go ahead and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and do a production revision. Again, going back to our life cycles, there are two options once an item goes into production. One is revising it, so kind of going in this loop over and over again, straight back into production, up revving it every time we do that. Or once it gets to end of life, we go ahead and send that to obsolete, right? So you can pick and choose what you're doing with each one of your items in that life cycle. In this case, we're going to do a production revision. And again, none of this is updating right now, but as soon as I hit save, you'll see that the item that we're going through a production revision will go from A to B. And these that we're releasing for the very first time will go to revision A. Any questions, again, please feel free to jump in here. But again, if you saw the change request, if you saw the change request KVA that we did, the process from here is pretty straightforward. You have workflow actions that you can do. So these actions that appear here depend very much on your role in the change order. So if you have approvals waiting for you, or you're in charge of this change order, you'll be able to submit it into a CCB. These comments here can be made mandatory, right? So as you're creating your workflow or modifying it, you can make it so that these comments are mandatory. Again, it'll show you by that little red asterisk popping up. But if there's no red asterisk, it'll kind of go through the process. You can follow it along on this approval workflow. Again, if you're just a viewer or you just want to know the status of certain change orders, you can always search for them like we did that item, and you can push them forward, or sorry, view their status inside of this approval workflow tab. So again, at that point, you might be seeing something differently if you don't have any responsibilities in this change order. If I had multiple approvers, again, I would see an approve arrow highlighted here, but because I'm the only one in this workflow that needs to approve, I have this approve final. Again, really nice thing, depending on your preference, right? If you wanted to see all your available workflow actions up here in the drop-down menu, you could. But if you're more of a visual person and you need to know kind of where you're sending it, what the next steps are, you can do it from the approval workflow. You can click on the arrow itself, hit approve, and push it forward into the next stage. So you'll see here, as it goes through, it refreshes, you get the brand new list of tasks or actions that you can perform. Final approval is going to be here before it goes into approved. And what's nice is once it goes through this, again, there's scripts in the background running, right? So there's certain actions that need to happen. One of them, again, is tied to life cycles. One of them is tied to, certain fields that can be filled out and run on these transitions. But once it's in an approved state, we go to our affected items. And you'll see now that for each one of these, at the very end, they now say Rev A. That means they've been released at revision A. If I click on them, you'll see that the item is locked, so it can't be modified anymore. If it does get modified, it will create what's known as a working revision. So if I come in here, change this material to KVA material, proprietary material here, and hit save, you'll see that there is now a working version of this. So that means I'm allowed to make changes, make whatever edits I need to happen, but also have access to production A, which is the revision that we just released. Maybe compare those back and forth. Kind of quickly, just a review here. Actually, it'd be easier from here. As we're going through all these workflows, a lot of things are happening in the background. And I keep mentioning scripting. And as much as the GUI that you're seeing is important, customizing it to see the information that you need, the fields that you need, that's definitely very, very important, if not the most important thing. Scripting is just as important on the back end. You'll see here that this is the script library in Fusion Manage, and all of these are linked to certain workspaces inside of Fusion. But so approval board on edit, approval board workflow actions. These are all things that happen as your change request, change order items, as when actions are performed, certain things happen. So if you need certain fields filled in, when things are approved, you can use your scripts to do that for you. One example here is if I go back to my change order that we just worked on, related changes, and again, everything's interconnected, so I can get back and forth. But if I look at the change order, one of the things that happened while I was approving things is my name went from remaining approvers over to approved by every time I went through an approval process. And this is very helpful to keep track of it, right? So maybe you approved it last week, but your colleague hasn't approved it, or you don't know which colleague hasn't approved it yet. Their name would remain under remaining approvers, and you'd be able to know, hey, this is the person that might be holding it up, and allows you to kind of investigate things. Overall, this is a very simplified demonstration of what you can do in these workspaces. It's a very commonly used workspace. Every company has a change order process, even though it may not be documented. So, a lot of the times you may be going through it, whether it be a paper process, whether it be email process, you're doing it, right? It's just maybe not standardized. So this could be a tool is a tool that can be leveraged to kind of keep better track of those workflows. Just going to come back in here and just do a quick review here. Item details, again, I keep touching on it right before scripting. It's very important. All the information that you need can be captured, can be linked. If we're jumping from your ERP system or to your ERP system, certain information is necessary. With item details, you can pick and choose what format they're in and any limitations, right? ERP systems sometimes have character limits. You can do that. You can make sure that in Fusion, your values are the correct length before pushing out to ERP to avoid any errors. Life cycles, what you're doing with these items is up to you. You can build that, whether again you're going straight into production after this approval, or if it needs to go through multiple design changes, multiple design change orders, you can pick and choose that. Then on the other side, once it's in production, whether you want to revise your items or obsolete them, get them, sunset them, you can do that as well. We saw approvals. You can make those as complicated or as simple as you want. We did a very simple example where it was just me, but you can add a full team of people that is required at each one of those stages, right? So I went through 2 stages. You can add as many approvers as you need at each one of those stages. And then the last thing, just scripting in general, the different actions that can take place with scripting, whether it be updating the GUI that you're seeing to show up-to-date approvals, whether it be certain information being filled in from actions, right? So like, let's say you want the final approval to be captured on your item details. You can tell it, hey, as soon as this happens, grab the date and place it on this field in the item details tab. You can do a lot of it through the JavaScript scripting applications that are on there. As always, if there are any questions, I'm not seeing any in the chat right now, but if there are any questions on today's session, a previous session, or any future sessions, right? If there's something that you want me to dive deeper into based off of today's session, reach out to us. Like, Christina is very good at kind of forming these up or asking us if there's any other topics that we think will tie in. But the more information that you guys give us on what you want to see, the better. But also, if you have one of these environments and you're running into certain issues, feel free to reach out to us. We can jump on a call and kind of get things going for you guys. But yeah, I hope you guys got a lot out of this today. And if anything, a little bit more curiosity on Fusion Manage. But yeah, appreciate you guys coming in, and I think we'll go ahead and call it here if there are no other questions. Just give it a couple more minutes here.
Thank you so much, Jose. Next week's session again is going to be on bill of materials within Vault. And that's going to be hosted by Mario on our team. So be sure to join us next week and we will see you all then. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.